My grandfather believed the devil would return.
Every Evil Dead film has had one book that leads to the creation of the Deadites in that movie, but that's not quite the case when it comes to Evil Dead Burn, because here, all we have is a diary, a collection of notes and major research material based on the Book of the Dead. In fact, there was also a mention of Knowby, the man who translated the Necronomicon way back in the very first Evil Dead movie. So what really is the deal with Evil Dead Burn's Necronomicon, or, its lack thereof? What's so different about the Deadites in this movie, and how exactly are they different from the Deadites in the other films? And of course, does the Necronomicon from the 2023 movie Evil Dead Rise play any role in the turning of the Price family into Deadites? Well, in this video, we're going to be exploring all those questions and more, so without further ado, let's chant those words. Kunda, Astrada, Montose, Kanda! And let's get right into it. What makes Evil Dead Burn's Necronomicon so unique? Almost every installment of the Evil Dead franchise has seen its own version of the Book of the Dead, but there was something very different when it came to Evil Dead Burn. As you may already know, the Book of the Dead, or Necronomicon, or Naturam Demonto, whatever you want to call it, it's used to summon the Kandarian demon and create Deadites. But in Evil Dead Burn, the Book of the Dead doesn't create Deadites. They already existed in this movie, thanks to the previous installment, Evil Dead Rise, but more on that in just a bit when we discuss the totally exclusive and unique nature and characteristics of the Deadites that each Necronomicon creates. So the most unique thing about Evil Dead Burn's Necronomicon is that the movie doesn't have a Necronomicon. All we get to see are scanned pages from the Necronomicon shown in the 2013 Evil Dead reboot, which was directed by Fede Alvarez. In Evil Dead Burn, there's something called the Circle of the Wise Men, which is basically an order that's dedicated to finding artifacts and weapons to fight and vanquish Deadites. Now, Benjamin Price, the former patriarch of the Price family, and also a professor of ancient history at an unnamed college or university, collected tons of notes on everything Evil Dead, be it the Kandarian demon, the Kandarian dagger, the Necronomicon itself, and even its contents. It was among this research that we also found a diary of sorts that basically served as a treasure trove of information, and this diary not only had a newspaper clipping that mentioned the tragedy from the 2013 movie, it also had the name Knowby under a section that read Audio Right. Clearly, our friend Benjamin Price somehow knew Raymond Knowby, the man who first translated the Necronomicon and recorded it, only for Ash and his friends to find it. Now, the diary also contained the phrase Kunda, Astrada, Montose, Kanda. And we know that these words are used to summon the Kandarian demon or to turn someone into a Deadite. So, if you were wondering what the Necronomicon from Evil Dead Burn looked like, well, it looked like a diary. I know that said diary wasn't really the Necronomicon, but it absolutely filled that role. For instance, after Deadite Edgar Price kills the family dog, Alice goes out to bury him, which is when she finds all the notes and research done by Benjamin. She starts to chant the phrase and reaches the third word, Montose, but then she's like, fuck this shit, and shuts the book, but the damage has been done. Despite not completing the entire phrase with the fourth and final word, Kanda, whatever Alice did recite was enough to bring back the family dog in Deadite form. And apart from this, the phrase was once spoken by the severed head of Deadite Jessica when she needed to convert William Price into a Deadite. But yeah, this was mostly fan service, as a Deadite has no need to recite the phrase to turn a human into a Deadite. But we do have a solid theory, one that's backed with reason, about which book actually led to the creation of the Deadites in Burn, and we're going to talk about that right after this next entry. What happens to the people who get infected? Now, the reason we're talking about the characteristics and nature of the Deadites from Evil Dead Burn is that different Necronomicons have been known to create different kinds of Deadites, and the ones from Evil Dead Burn are unique in their own right. Firstly, it seems like one turns into a Deadite in Burn, similar to how someone gets afflicted with an infectious disease. For instance, Edgar turned his wife through a kiss, which she claimed was an amazing kiss, by the way. Then, Grandmother Polly was turned by Deadite Tia through saliva exchange. As for Joseph, he got turned after his death, which was the result of one of the craziest ass-whoopings in all of Evil Dead history, or maybe even in horror movie history. I mean, I've seen people in horror movies getting hit, flung into the air, or thrown across the room, but what Edgar did to Joseph was really terrible. In fact, the dog also got turned because of Edgar killing him, and as for the dog attacking Alice, that was because of her reiteration of that mantra. Now, as for the Deadites' nature, the first and second Evil Dead movies had Deadites that were all about trying to turn their victims crazy before hurting them physically, and only then would they claim their souls. Like, these Deadites were as much into playing mind games as they were into violence and bloodshed. However, in Evil Dead Rise, the Deadites, especially Ellie Bixler, the mother of the kids, didn't waste time with all this and simply got down to business after her death and eventual undead resurrection. She just wanted to kill and turn as many people as she could. And the Deadites in Evil Dead Rise were also heavy on body horror or supernatural elements, like several bodies combining into a giant mass, or the Marauder. Some would even throw up worms or eat stuff you're not supposed to eat, but then the Deadites from the 2013 film fit somewhere in the middle of these two categories, and I feel that the Deadites from Burn are actually heavily inspired by those from the 2013 movie. You see, the monsters from both these movies like to horrify their victims through violent acts upon themselves. Case in point, Edgar shooting himself multiple times in the head, or Tia drinking a hot glass of molten candle wax. But then, immediately after, these Deadites start their thing and go after anyone and everyone they possibly could. But yeah, their primary intent was to get a hold of a Kandarian dagger, the only thing capable of truly vanquishing a Deadite. Our take on which Necronomicon actually created the Deadites in Burn. So we've established that Benjamin Price's notes and research material had scanned images from the 2013 movie's Necronomicon, but I don't think that the Deadites in Burn were actually a result of that book. See, to get to the bottom of this, we first need to understand just who the first ever Deadite was in this film. At the beginning of the film, Joseph gets his hands on the first Kandarian dagger that Benjamin Price had not only kept hidden from humans, but also from Deadites, by covering it in hexes and runes. But as soon as Joseph opens that protective binding, Deadite Jessica, who was in the vicinity, gets alerted. Like, she basically senses the dagger's presence and seeks to destroy it, but in order to do so, she needs the help of the Price family. Now, Jessica was the same girl who got hit by an unseen force at the end of Evil Dead Rise. She then goes back to the lakeside with her cousin and her boyfriend, where she first scalps her cousin before killing both her companions in a brutal fashion. And at the beginning of Burn, we actually see the scalped head of a woman getting caught in the fishing rod of the guys who visited that lakeside. Deadite Jessica later appears and kills them both before going after Will. She then converts Will, and the rest of the family faces the same fate, including Alice, whose left eye becomes bright yellow at the end of the movie while she's sitting in the care of a first responder. So, if you think about it, it had always been Deadite Jessica who was the first Deadite, or Patient Zero if you will. And Jessica herself had been turned into a Deadite because of the book from the 2023 movie, and it was unique because it opened only through coming in contact with blood, and it also had sharp teeth for locks. Now, that said, that's just our theory, but we'd love to hear your thoughts on the matter. Let us know where you think these Deadites came from in the comments section down below, and if you like this video, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons to let us know that you liked it. Those 2 small clicks from you are the best way to tell us you want more videos like this. So, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and we'll see you next time.